Hi, it's Hater Sensei Grandmaster Chosen One, Ramsey Dewey here. Let's talk about Yilong for a minute. If you don't know who Yilong is, he is most famous for being the kickboxing Shaolin Monk in China. Except he isn't actually a Shaolin monk. Surprise! Now, I had no idea how well-known Yilong was outside of China until I made a video with Dr. Antonio Gracefo, where we did a podcast. We talked about all kinds of things. We talked about the Shanghai Sports University, the sports university structure in China. He has a doctorate's degree in Wushu, emphasis in Shuaijiao wrestling, Chinese folk wrestling, from the Shanghai University of Sport. And among other topics, we talked about the Shaolin Temple and his experience training with the Shaolin monks. So these Shaolin monks, like in the Western mind, in America, we see them, we see these movies, we see these demos where they look like they're indestructible, magical people filled with chi energy that makes them invincible. And one of the most common questions is, are they really like that? If you took a Shaolin monk, one of these guys who's able to do these amazing demonstrations, feats of physical strength and skill or whatever, and put him in an MMA fight today,
he'd get killed.
Okay.
He would get killed, like instantly.
Yeah.
You can't, okay, I did martial arts odyssey. You know, I've been doing this for years, and I've trained with old men up on mountains, and I've trained in, in paddy fields, and I've trained, and there is nothing out there. I will say it right now publicly. There is nothing else out there. There is no special. There is no magic. There is no guy in a cave with 3 students who can beat everybody in the world because they know the secret. There is no secret. The secret is you get up early in the morning, you run, then you lift weights, then you wrestle, then you work the pads, and then you spar, and you get a jiu-jitsu guy to come in and, that's the secret.
Oh man, you just told all those kids on the internet that Santa Claus isn't real.
Yeah, no.
I thought he might say, well, they're fit and athletic and all that, but that's not the sport they train for. But he answered immediately, they would get killed instantly. That is not what they train for. And that got a lot of backlash, a ton of backlash from angry people on the internet who want to believe that Shaolin is magic. They want to believe that these monks have superpowers. So if you watch the Shaolin monks at the temple in Henan, China, they perform these incredible looking feats of strength and basically magic tricks, like lying down on a bunch of spears and have the monks carry them around without getting cut. And it looks physically impossible. Now these tricks, if you will, can be explained. Obviously they take discipline and training to be able to do, but so do magicians' magic tricks. Like if you go to the Magic Castle in Hollywood, California, and watch those magicians do those really cool tricks that are hard to figure out. Well, guess what? You can figure them out. You can figure out how to do a sleight of hand trick, but that still takes training and physical discipline. You actually have to be fast enough, and you actually have to be clever enough to disguise your movements. In the same way that in a boxing match, you have to be clever enough to use sleight of hand, if you will, distraction, to use a fake or a feint to hit the other guy so he doesn't see it coming. You're only going to get hit with the punches that you can't see. So boxers, man, those guys are magicians at the high level. So Shaolin monks. Yeah, there's this commonly held folk belief that the Shaolin monks are invincible, and if you had one of those real Shaolin monks who could smash a brick with their hand or lie down on a bunch of spears without getting a scratch on them or bend some rebar around their neck, that those guys would destroy any of these wimpy little MMA fighters who are totally overrated, right? And then Dr. Gracefo, who actually lived with him and trained with him, says, no, not at all. So as a result, a bunch of people brought up Yilong. They said, well, what about Yilong? Take a look at this video of this Shaolin monk beating MMA fighters. Well, let's make a few simple corrections. One, those are not MMA fights, they're kickboxing matches. But 2, that's not a Shaolin monk. Yilong did not train in the Shaolin Temple. He did not train in Henan with the Shaolin monks. Yilong trained at the Shanghai Sports University in their Sanda program. Yilong actually got kicked out of the Sanda program. Now that doesn't mean he is a bad Sanda fighter. He's not. He's legitimate. I have friends who have fought Yilong. Like Will Chope, for example. Will Chope, he's set to fight Yilong, and yeah, that'll be an interesting fight. I mean, he is a legitimate kickboxer. He's a very experienced kickboxer. The guy's had like over 100 fights. You can't have over 100 fights without garnering experience. Yeah, he's a very experienced kickboxer. He knows how to handle himself in the ring. But he is not a Shaolin monk. I should probably clarify that statement, because saying you got kicked out of a university in the West sounds like you did something horribly wrong. And that's not the case in China. In China, very young people, children, are recruited to go train at sports universities for various sports at a very young age. They have scouts go out and assess the potential athletic ability of these children and see, okay, this guy will probably be a good wrestler, so let's send him to the Beijing University of Sport to study wrestling. Or this guy will probably be a good weightlifter, so let's set him up in the program to become an Olympic weightlifter and compete in the Olympics and bring glory to China, or whatever it is. And it's the same thing with Sanda. They go out and scout out potential Sanda fighters from a young age. They go and train at these sports universities. And I should probably say the toughest fighters in China are the guys who train at the sports universities, not the Shaolin Temple. Man, I've trained with the Sanda teams at a few different sports universities in China. At the Xi'an Sports University, for example, the home of the China top team. Those guys train 3 times a day, 2-hour sessions, and they cross-train in a bunch of different things, because Sanda is not a martial art. It is a mixed martial art, meaning you use whatever techniques within that rule set that allow you to win. So they cross-train in Muay Thai, they cross-train in boxing, they cross-train in Taekwondo, or whatever other martial art or technique they feel will give them the advantage. They cross-train in wrestling also. All of them cross-train in wrestling. Usually the folk-style Chinese wrestling, specifically because of the rule set. Because there's no ground fighting, and you only score for a takedown if your opponent is grounded and you remain standing during the takedown. So there's a very specific syllabus of throws there. So back to this process. They're recruited as children, and at various stages as they go through the program, children are cut. And it's an unforgiving process. Sorry, not good enough. We're only taking the best of the best of the best here. Guys who have the potential to be the Sanda Wang, the national Sanda champion, the Sanda king. And Yilong was not one of those guys, so he got cut from the program, so he went back to his hometown in Shandong province, I think. I think that's where he's from. And yeah, he had spent his whole life training in Sanda. If you're not familiar with that, with what that is, it's a Chinese form of kickboxing that also allows throws and takedowns. So you can punch, you can kick, and you can throw and take down your opponent as long as you remain standing. So he started fighting, and being a smart guy, Yilong figured out that he needed a gimmick to get some attention. Because being good wasn't good enough. You have to be exceptional, you have to stand out. And so in the same way that professional wrestlers put on a costume and devise a gimmick, he did the exact same thing. He put on the monk robes, he put on the monk costume, he shaved his head, he started acting like a monk. And people were way into it. So Yilong is a monk in the same way that the Iron Sheik from the old WWF pro wrestling days was Persian royalty. In other words, he wasn't. It's a gimmick, guys. It's a gimmick. He's not an MMA fighter, and he's not a monk. Yes, he's a legitimate kickboxer. He's a very experienced kickboxer, but he's not a monk. So please, please stop sending me these thousands and thousands of links to these highlight reels of Elong's kickboxing matches telling me, look, there's a monk in MMA. There's not. He's not an MMA fighter. He's never done an MMA fight, and he's not a monk. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.